and welcome. I'm your host, Carissa Karner, and today I am joined by Dr. Dyan Haspel-Johnson. Now, she holds a PhD in psychology. She's a somatic experiencing practitioner and a licensed psychologist, and she has a particular expertise in sleep and self-hypnosis for sleep. This is such a cool expertise. Now, she served as the Vice President of Continuing Education Programs for the Southern California Society for Clinical Hypnosis. She became president of that organization. She's also a consultant for the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis, co-founder of the Los Angeles Erickson Institute, and she's a member of the American Psychological Association in the Division of Hypnosis. Now, she's taught clinical hypnosis at UCLA, and she does speak on a broad range of topics, but sleep has become her particular area of expertise. Now, not only that, but she's also a VIP contributor to Arianna Huffington's wellness site, Thrive Global. Dyan is a true expert, and I'm so happy to have you on today. Would you share with us a little bit about who you are and what you do in your own words?
I would love to, and I'm so excited to be here. This is such a great podcast and such a great topic, and I think it's so fitting for talking about hypnosis and the importance of sleep. I got into this many years ago, into self-hypnosis and into teaching hypnosis. Actually, 27 years ago, I got trained while I was in graduate school, working on my PhD in psychology. And it started because I had so many health issues myself, a lot of chronic health issues, chronic pain, and of course, very severe chronic insomnia that I had had my entire life. I remember being like 3 years old and having disturbed sleep and spinning thoughts and waking up in the middle of the night. And so it was something that had always bothered me. And I was meeting so many different people who had these kinds of issues. And, it was wearing down my immune system. I was getting infections. And when I got trained in hypnosis, when I was in graduate school and started doing daily self-hypnosis after I got trained, my sleep problems completely changed. My health completely changed. And I was working in a medical practice at the time. And I was so different. My blood tests were different. My allergies, skin tests were different. Everything was different, that I started working with patients in that practice, and we started seeing objective differences and subjective differences, and I was just so excited that I started talking about it. So I think that led us to where we are today.
Wow, that's incredible, and it's so incredible that something that you're really using the power of your mind for, but it affects your whole body. I mean, to say that even your testing looked different, you felt different, but there was this evidence that showed that things were changing in your body.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I tend to think of hypnosis and self-hypnosis, which is real, hypnosis being going to a practitioner like myself and having them guide you in hypnosis, right? Or learning from a practitioner like myself how to do self-hypnosis. And then self-hypnosis is really doing it on your own. So, I've created ways that people can do that, can start to learn how to do it on their own. And that to me is extremely empowering, because it's changing your perception. And then that changes your physical body. So you're changing it from the inside out, as opposed to taking a pill for sleep or a pill to calm your nerves before you get on stage or you do a presentation, right? People tend to do that, and that's great. And it's wonderful that people have those resources, but isn't it more empowering? Isn't it more confidence building to use the power of your mind to change your story and then change your entire physical reality?
Yes. Yes, that is lasting lifetime change.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's so powerful. Now, I want to talk more about hypnosis can help, how it's helped you and how it can help speakers and entrepreneurs. But first, I'd love to hear a little bit about this program that you've created specifically to help people with sleep. What prompted you to create that? And can you share with us about it?
Yeah, I love working with sleep because I think it's the foundation sort of everything. When people aren't sleeping well, they can't be as productive. They get moody. They have more anxiety. They have more depression. They have more tense interactions with loved ones or at work. So the product relationships get strained. The immune system shuts down. There's a lot of health issues, and it's something that troubles so many different people. People have so much insomnia in the world, really, and poor quality sleep. So it's something that I'm very passionate about because I had such extreme sleep issues, and hypnosis was the thing that changed it. And, like I said, it's been 27 years. I've done self-hypnosis every day for 27 years. So, it's good stuff. But, to me, it was a matter of that. My private practice was getting really full. And for the most part, I only even now take on new clients if I think they're particularly suited to me. And one of the things that I would never turn away is if someone had sleep issues. But working one-on-one with people, I can only do that in the states where I'm licensed. I'm licensed in a handful of states in the US. And it was just heartbreaking to hear these people's stories. And so I wanted, I had someone, Carissa, who flew from Vietnam to see me. That's how troubling it is when people have insomnia that is extreme, that goes on for years, that interferes with everything. And I just thought to myself, there has to be a way to make this more accessible to people, because I don't have enough time in the day. People shouldn't have to travel to come see me because they're having so much trouble finding people. And, people would download, apps and things like that, recordings from the internet, and tell me, well, it's very relaxing, but didn't really help me. And then I would listen to some of these, and I found that they didn't seem to really tap into understanding sleep architecture, how sleep works in the body, in the natural rhythm of the body and the brain, things like that. So I finally decided, I should just make some downloads that were different. I wanted a set of different lengths of, time. So there are some that are like 30 minutes and some that are like 11 minutes and a range in between. I wanted a bunch of different things so people could kind of pick and choose and have variety. And then I thought, well, really, I want to empower people. So I wanted to make something that would teach people self-hypnosis. So there are videos and there are audios and there's an ebook, and it teaches people how to use self-hypnosis for their own self-care, which I think is the game changer.
Absolutely. You've really created the whole package. And I've been listening to those audios, and I have to say it really is life-changing. I listened to one just the other night. I have an issue where I wake up and my brain just starts spinning and churning. And you have one in particular for being able to fall back asleep when you wake up. And maybe I'm not saying that quite exactly right, but it's something along those lines. And it made a world of difference for me. I found that I had, I think, the best night of sleep I've had in years.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that. That's so great. That warms my heart.
Yeah, so I can attest to the power of this package. And I love how you really wanted to be able to reach more people, that this is such a powerful tool, and that you wanted to be able to get it into as many people's hands as possible so that more people can have relief. That is just so incredibly touching and powerful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a labor of love, because I originally thought, I was like, oh, this is going to take me, 200 hours to do. I can do it, that's fine. No big deal. And then it was like, I think it took me over 10,000 hours. It took me years. I was so meticulous about it. I really wanted people to feel empowered, to feel loved, to feel like they had something that they could rely on in themselves, and that teaches them something. And, I think that one of the reasons I was so excited to go on this podcast with you and talk about this in this space is because I think when people do presentations and they do public speaking, they have something that they want to say. They have something that they want to impart to the people who are listening that's going to add value to their lives. And that's really what I was trying to do and what I've been doing with these packages, which is to try to empower people and encourage them to find a quiet space in themselves where they can tap into and connect to their own inner voice, and then bring that out into the world to manifest as their best selves.
Mm.
And I think that isn't that what we're doing when we are speaking, or at least I think when we're speaking and it's touching people and we feel
Yes.
confident, we're coming from that place inside of ourselves where we're sort of touching into our greatest gifts, and we're finding a way to tell that story out into the world in a way that touches others. And I think that hypnosis is one of these bridge things that connects that it serves as that piece.
Wow.
Does that make sense to
Yes.
you?
Yes, absolutely. And we were talking earlier too about this idea that when speakers step on stage, in a way, they so often are practicing hypnosis. And what you're saying is it's inside and outside, that we can use that power of self-hypnosis to really tap into what's true to us, as we use the power of hypnosis for good, as we share our message with our audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, I've done a lot of public speaking, as you know, and both training professionals in things like hypnosis, and then also doing a lot of podcasts and summits nationally and internationally. And so I've done a lot of public speaking.
Mm.
And, when I started, I would get kind of nervous. I'd get the butterflies in my stomach, and I would, oh, what am I going to say? And I had my notes and all of these things. And after a while, I realized that I was just going into, that zone, right? The
Yes.
most successful public speaking happens when we go into our own self-hypnotic state. We really connect with our voice. We really connect with our passion and what it is that we're trying to convey. And then there's almost like a flow. It's almost like it's flowing through us. And then it becomes this collective trance state between yourself and the audience.
Oh,
Because, I kind of think like all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, and everything is kind of hypnosis. You tell a story, and if you tell it well, people become absorbed in it, and it feels like time just passes in an instant, and it feels like everything else just fades into the background.
yes.
All of those are hypnotic phenomenon. So it's really a hypnotic state. So I think learning self-hypnosis, even if it's focusing on self-hypnosis for sleep, so that you're more well rested when you give your presentation or when you do anything in your life, but it also teaches you to be in that zone. So because I do self-hypnosis every day, what I found is that it was easier for me to do public speaking and to be successful at that, and to pivot anytime, anywhere for the most part, because I was so close to that place of my own center.
Wow. So tapped into yourself. Yes, it really does. You're really speaking to the power of self-hypnosis, that it can empower you to do anything, to be anyone, anywhere, anytime, and to be able to stay true and connected to yourself.
Yeah, I think it's about reaching our potential, having a cohesiveness between what's happening on our internal state of being and how we convey that internal state of being out into the world.
Yeah.
Right. And then how that's received. When you're public speaking, you're interacting with all of the energy, all of the thoughts, all of the experiences that are there in the audience. And I think sometimes what happens when we're lying in bed and our mind is spinning, or we wake up like you described in the middle of the night and you have all these busy thoughts, is, how do you, it's about transition, right? It's all of this energy from the day. It's all of the to-do list that's happening in the conscious mind. And it's not really cohesive in that moment with the unconscious. So it's about finding that space of how do we transition between the internal and the external, between the conscious and the unconscious, between self and other. And I think when we do self-hypnosis, we gain mastery of that.
That is so powerful. And when we were talking the other day, you said that self-hypnosis, it's a superpower. It's a
Right.
superpower that you can access yourself. Like the power is in our hands. And with this audio collection, this whole package and video collection that you've created, you're putting the power in our hands. But you've said too, and you've alluded to this already about how we're being hypnotized all the time. And here you're talking about, how we do that on stage, listening to a story is hypnosis. So when we are consciously choosing how we want to engage with hypnosis, that is when it becomes a superpower.
Absolutely. So beautifully said. Yeah. I mean, I think it's, you know, people are very confused, I think a lot of times because of what happens, what happens in the media and how
Yeah.
hypnosis is portrayed in the media. So
Yeah.
people are very confused about it. They think it's this woo-woo thing, or that, somebody's going to take over your mind. It's
Mhm.
really not like that. In fact, it is a naturally occurring phenomenon, and it is a stable personality characteristic that can be measured. So around 1960, there were two scales that were developed for research, the Stanford scale and the Harvard scale. And those are still the most widely used in research. The Harvard scale is actually the most widely used in research in the world. And, it's a stable scale. What that means also is that I could do the Harvard scale to you
Mhm.
today. I could do it in 25 years. And objectively speaking, you would have the same experience. So what I mean by that is if I were doing the Harvard scale to you, if I were doing any hypnotic scale to you, for example, I might say to you, just relax and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you'd feel very pleasant. You'd hear everything I was saying. And then I could say something to you after a while that, like, your arm is levitating. And your arm would levitate.
Uh-huh.
This happens to almost everyone.
Huh.
And I've hypnotized thousands and thousands of people in the last 27 years. I've never met anybody who couldn't be hypnotized, which is so amazing. I mean, different people have different levels of hypnotic ability. So some people go into trance more easily. I always think, well, it's my job to figure out the best way to hypnotize the particular person. It's not
Mm.
their job to figure out how to listen to me. It's my job to figure out how to listen to them, right? So if you have an experience of your arm levitating, that's pretty powerful. Well, think about this, Carissa. We're listening to music and driving the same route we drive every day to go home, and suddenly we find ourselves pulling into our driveway. We don't even remember getting off at that exit, turning at that street. It happened automatically. We're basically in trance.
Huh.
You go to a restaurant and, or you're at dinner with somebody and you're having a conversation and there's background noise. There's noises outside. There's noises in a restaurant. There's noise, and you don't even notice it. You're so hyper-focused on what the person is saying. Before you know it, 3 hours have passed. These are hypnotic experiences.
Huh. Yes.
So, or people are playing, scrolling on Instagram, and time is just passing and they're completely entranced by it.
Yes.
So these are things that happen naturally. Think about how powerful it is if you're more in control of that. You decide what that story is. You decide where you want to put your attention. If you're
Yes.
going out to speak about something that's important to you, or that you're under pressure for work or for whatever reason, you have to give this presentation. You want to impress the people. If you are thinking, what if I fail? What if I can't do it? What if nobody likes me? What if I stutter? What if my face turns red? These are things that happen when people have a fear of public speaking, as you know.
Yes. Yes.
That those are hypnotic suggestions.
Huh.
And so if we learn self-hypnosis, we can change those things. And it's so empowering.
So empowering. And too, it was so interesting to me to hear that you can hypnotize anybody. And that tells me that there is nobody that's not being hypnotized and in a state of trance walking around in their daily lives, that we're all doing that. And to be conscious about what we put in, what we're taking in, what we're ingesting and digesting, it makes a world of difference. It's
for sure.
huge. You shared with me too a story about a client of yours, somebody you worked with who was very afraid to do a big talk in front of a lot of people. Would you share that
Yes.
story?
Yeah, it's a pretty good story. It was kind of amazing. This was years ago. And it was a client of mine who was a big time director who had a fear of public speaking. And he, in fact, had been on a film set for it was a very, very long production. And he had a large crew, something like, I'm going to say 150 people. And every week at the beginning of the week, there was a pep talk where they would go over, all of the things that had happened the past week and go over the footage with the crew and give an inspirational talk. And he loved his crew. He actually went out of his way. He was a really friendly guy. He went out of his way to have conversations with every single person on the crew and to be friends with them and to hear about their weekends or to hear about their days. And he was very engaged with them. He loved them, but he would never give the beginning of the week talk because
Wow.
he was so afraid of public speaking. He could not stand being in front of groups. And I asked him about this and he said, no, if it's one-on-one, even if it's a small group, out to dinner or something like that, he really enjoyed talking to them. But in a larger group of all of them, he just couldn't do it. So he would have his stage manager, who he didn't particularly like and who a lot of people didn't like. He would have that guy do this talk. Well, gets towards the end of the production and they're in post-production and he is in a panic because he's just learned that he has to go to Comic-Con and he has to do a presentation live in front of 6,000 people with 3 giant screens behind him projecting his face while he's being interviewed live.
Wow. I can imagine all the anxiety was coming
Oh
up.
my gosh. So he's like, you have to hypnotize me. So I said, okay. And he was only a moderate hypnotic subject. He was not like, in the scales that I was mentioning, he would not have been at the high end. He was about moderate. Anyway, we make him a hypnosis recording. We did it about 2 weeks before, 10 days to 2 weeks before, make him a hypnosis recording. He thinks he fell asleep during it. He didn't hear, he said, I think I fell asleep. Is that going to be a problem? I said, no problem. You can't go into a slow enough brainwave in the 20 minutes of that recording that you're not hearing what I'm saying. It's no problem. I don't care if you hear every word I say. If you don't hear the words that I say, it doesn't matter. Okay, fine. He takes this recording. He starts doing his self-hypnosis. He does it every day, just like I told him to. He calls me right after he does this presentation. And he says, it went great. It was phenomenal. He says, it felt great. He was cracking jokes. He says his assistant and the producer of this film all said to him afterwards, you were on fire. You were so great. You were that was so fun. Great energy, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, wow, that's amazing. How did what happened? He said, well, I woke up in the morning. I was a little bit nervous. I listened to the recording. And then I thought, you know what? I have been waiting my whole life to do something that I care this much about. This is so far the pinnacle of my career. And these people are here to listen to what I have to say, to see what I've done, to see what I care about. And I'm excited. I can't wait to share it with them. And I'm so grateful that they want to hear what I have to say. And I just started laughing. And he was like, what? He was like, wait, did you say that on the recording? I said, that's exactly what I said on the recording.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So after that, it was great. He was able to, he no longer had a fear of public speaking.
Wow.
He was able to do press. That was, it was over a decade ago. So as far as I know, it's all good now.
Wow. Life changing. And I love that arc where he was so nervous that he couldn't even do these little huddles in the mornings, that to going and speaking in front of 6,000 people and having his face on these big screens and feeling confident. And wow, does that ever show the power? What you were just saying, hypnosis is a superpower. when
Right.
you choose what's coming in, it can absolutely change your life.
100%, 100%. And I think that this is the thing. It's just about, it's not so much even what I said to him, but it's about the fact that he was putting himself in this state where he was connecting with himself and with his own voice. Of course, that's what he was doing in his work, or he wouldn't have gotten to the level that he was at. But he didn't know how to express that.
Mm.
And it was one thing when he was focused on what he was doing and what he loved and on his craft. It was another thing when he felt like his work wasn't speaking for him. He was speaking for him. Right. And so in that state, because he was doing the daily self-hypnosis for, about 2 weeks beforehand, he was gaining mastery of that skill of moving between those different states of being, the conscious and the unconscious. And so when he was out there, he was able to tell the story that he liked and ride off that energy and be in that natural state because it was familiar to him. And he knew at that point, he built the muscle.
Yes. 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 Which is just what you were describing earlier as we were having this conversation about being able to be in that space, just being so connected to yourself. And I think about too, it's almost like the gunk of the beliefs that just really aren't serving us and aren't true. They just get cleared away so the self can shine out.
Right.
Oh,
I love that. I love what you just said, because I think it is like this clearing away of that gunk. It creates this almost pure state. For me, I continue to do my self-hypnosis every day for 27 years, even though I resolved those sleep issues and I resolved those health issues. I do it because, for one thing, I don't forget where I've been, but for another thing, for me, it is just this place that I go to inside of myself where I connect. Everything just kind of moves aside and it's just about a state of being. For me, I got trained in transcendental meditation when I was like 5 or 6 years old. My mother took me to get trained in it. And I didn't really connect that much to it. And I tried a lot of different meditation techniques. My mind was a little too busy for that. I would just get restless. And so for me, self-hypnosis has been the way to go because it occupies my mind. So it's almost like my mind is on one track and then I can almost like sink above and below it and be in this other place of just beingness. So my mind can continue sometimes to chatter away or kind of like, that monkey mind can come in, but that's cool. I'm riding the wave.
Oh, that's powerful. And I imagine too, for our listeners, that there are many of you who feel that, hypnosis doesn't really work for me, or just getting quiet doesn't really work for me. Sorry, meditation doesn't work for me, not hypnosis. Just getting quiet and still, my brain is still going. And so hypnosis is a different path to achieve that, really being able to shift and change within, even if your mind is busy when you go to meditate or you go to get quiet. This is an alternative.
Absolutely. So well said. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So before we wrap up, I want to ask too, because you have this sleeping package available, which is so powerful. And again, I've been listening to these recordings and I feel how they change not just my sleep, but they are that shift you're talking about, feeling more connected to myself, feeling more myself, less gunk in the way. Mm-hmm. And how would you say, in your perspective, can listening to these recordings, purchasing this package, and really making use of it, how can that help a speaker, an entrepreneur, a leader? How can that help them, even though it's just sleep? Just sleep.
That's such a great question. I think for one thing, when people are sleeping well, getting high quality sleep and feeling rested, they can be their best selves. And of course, a lot happens when we're sleeping. That's when memory gets consolidated. So, you come up with all of these concepts, you come up with your PowerPoint, you come up with your topics, you have your bullet points, either on notes or memorized or whatever. And then you're kind of going over that in your mind, right? Well, it's actually when you're sleeping that a lot of that information that you take in gets consolidated and moved around to different parts of the brain, sort of filed away, and then expressed out when you recall it. So having quality sleep is extremely important in that it's helping you to assimilate the information that you've been practicing and compiling, so that when you wake up on the day of the presentation, it's well organized. You're also more energetic. You feel more rested. And look, it's natural. A lot of times, whether it's excitement, whether it's nervousness, sometimes people are restless the night before a big presentation. And that's a natural way to be. And some of that just, I think you can frame as excitement, reframe it to yourself. I'm excited about this, instead of, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Just even that. But I think that the other thing is the packages, yes, they're focused on sleep, but it's really more about rest. So I focus on sleep because sleep is a symptom that a lot of people want to deal with. But in fact, I don't think that we have an epidemic of sleep problems. I actually think we have an epidemic of problems with resting.
Oh,
when
yes.
people rest, they sleep.
The
problem is that people are so busy. There are so many obligations. There are so many things that people are concerned about or ruminating about, about the past, about the future, all of that spinning around, and we're going. And then we're expecting ourselves to just flip a switch and suddenly we're asleep. There's no transition. So when we rest, and hypnosis is a resting state, it's a bridge state, remember, we can sleep better. And I think that also helps us when we're doing presentations in pivoting and reading the audience, in connecting self to other. So practicing, you're building that muscle, you're sleeping better, you're gaining mastery over these transitional states. And I think all of that adds up to being your best self and being able to pivot quickly and being able to read a room and being able to pull information, pull topics, synthesize them, all of that. So I think that adds up to better public speaking.
Isn't that incredible that focusing on sleep can bring so many benefits? And I was thinking as you were saying that too, that I often talk about how important it is to build the skill of being yourself in front of an audience. And it doesn't always come naturally. But what you're saying is, and what I'm experiencing, even doing the self-hypnosis, is that it's a process that naturally happens when you use self-hypnosis as your superpower. That you don't necessarily have to figure out, oh, how do I be myself? I have to practice for, 6 months before I'm comfortable just being me in front of people. That it starts to happen naturally.
Absolutely. And I think that when we are in that natural state of being, when we find that zone, which is what happens with self-hypnosis, and then you translate that onto a stage, onto a presentation, everybody feels it. Yeah. Everybody wants to connect with you. Yes. I think this is the other thing, and I'm sure you know this better even than I know this, but the audience wants to help you. People want you to succeed. When someone shows up to listen to a speaker, they want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
They want to absorb that knowledge. So when we're in that zone in ourselves, when we can tap into our excitement, when we can tap into our state of beingness, our highest potential like that, everybody's rooting for you, and it just becomes this collective, beautiful thing.
Oh, wow. Wow. I love that. So how can our listeners, how can they find you? And you have a free gift that you want to share as well.
Yes, I do. So people can find me on, most of the social at Dr. Dyan HJ. So it's DRDYAN HJ, as one unusual name to another. Carissa. And of course I have a website, which is just drdyan.com. DRDYAN.com. But I do have a free gift for the listeners, and they can find it by going to www.selfhypnosisforhealingsleep.com/speaker in demand. And if they go to that link, they will get a free ebook and video. And if they download that free ebook and video, if ultimately they're interested in buying any of my products, but particularly the sleep set that we've been talking about, they will actually get a third off.
Oh, wow. What a gift.
Yeah. And I am going to give some of the proceeds back to you and the show. So they will know that anything that they purchase at any point ever will go back to supporting you.
Oh, that's beautiful. A partnership, a three-way partnership.
Yes.
That is wonderful. And I cannot recommend Dyan's packages for sleep. I cannot recommend it enough. It has changed. It is changing my life. It's changed my sleep. And I think you are phenomenal. I could talk to you for hours. This is so wonderful. So before we wrap up, if there is one thing you want people to take away today, what would that be?
That is a great question. I would say that, my whole purpose in doing this, in teaching people self-hypnosis, is to teach people to trust themselves and to know that we all have this superpower inside of ourselves. So it's really about creating a space, finding a way every single day to just be with yourself. To let all the other stories go away, all of the conditioning, all of even the experiences, bad and good, but just to be with yourself. And when you do that, you will reach your potential. You will do magical things, powerful things, and spread light in the world. So it's really about finding a way to do that, to trust yourself, to be with yourself. For me, that's self-hypnosis, which is why I do it every day, and I highly recommend it. And just by the way, if people are interested and they want to try these things out, I actually give a 60-day money-back guarantee. I really want people to be able to try it, see if they love it, and at no risk. So I encourage people to do so.
Wow. And that quieting down, being with yourself, that is how you tap into this superpower. Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh, what a treasure this is. Thank you for being a guest here and for all of this wonderful information that you've shared today, Dyan.
You are so welcome, Carissa, and thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Bye-bye.